No.
I think that it makes life more interesting than cinema. I actually wanted to play with time in this film, and I think sound is a keeper of time.
What if you had to focus on one specific emotion and say, I want to leave people with this one?
Hope. Are
With
I
all the
got
plan-
money for it.
That is true. That is true. Yeah,
I did
yeah,
put
yeah.
in my own. And for me, I feel as a woman, I internalize a lot of misogyny or patriarchy without even thinking about it. I'm also really glad that a film like Apada Lady is going, because it's a great film, and I really like Kiran Rao's previous movie also. It's about Mumbai.
That's
Dhobiga.
true.
It's such
Yeah.
a lovely film.
Hello, Payal Kapadia. Nice to meet you. My name is Sudhir Srinivasan. I am a film critic. We've been reading up about All We Imagine Is Light for a while now. Constantly reading great opinions about it. People recommending it actively, saying you must see this film. And a lot of people lobbying for it. I remember lots of voices for it in favor of it needing to be India's submission for the Oscars and all of that as well. We'll get to. But I caught it very recently, and I absolutely liked it. I enjoyed the women in this film. I liked the stillness of it, the quiet of it. I found it to be a very moving film too. So yeah, I thought we could dig into the nuances ahead of its release in November 22 in the theatres. For starters, I think Kani's character could probably be a good character to begin from, because for me, I grew up watching my mom, watching a lot of women around me, not necessarily chasing their dreams or expressing their even basic desires, right? And she seemed to be a stand-in for all these women whose voices often go unheard. What's your exposure to that sort of woman? Maybe I thought we could begin that.
Yeah, I think it's very well said what you said, because we all have women like this in our life. Unfortunately, that is how our society is. And even in films, not every time the female character is expressing desire. It's always men who are chasing after the women. And
That's true.
that is what we take as the granted. It's not always like, how do we speak about these feelings in our hearts? And women don't always have the vocabulary. Maybe in some ancient poetry and some other ways they were there, or we've had some bits of it, but not the main thing.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, how will I be able to express these desires when there's not much of a vocabulary in it? But cinema can talk without talking. And I enjoy this kind of films because you can use so many other elements in film to talk about an inner feeling which a society doesn't allow you to openly speak about. So that was the attempt.
No, and I like that, these complex emotions these women in the film go through. It's not necessarily communicated through dialogue.
Yeah.
It's not really out in the open. They're not discussing it openly. The idea that I'll just capture that with a glance, for example.
Yes.
I remember that scene when I think Anu steps out of that village home, right? And Kani is lying down. She's you see it from behind her, and she blinks a couple of times as well.
Yeah.
And you can see what she must be thinking about in that moment.
I enjoy very much as a spectator cinema that gives me space for interpretation, and it's not as if it is so open also. Like I think that shot, the way the zoom in is and the way we've tried to cinematically do it, it's there only that what you will get in the head. She doesn't have to say it, but I like the idea that everybody can interpret it in their own way when they have felt that way before, with a thing of some kind of slight jealousy, envy. How can she do this? These kind of mixed feelings that we've all had in our lives. There's nothing too complex
and
about it.
I don't have it, or even if I could have it, I'm unable to chase it.
Yeah, exactly. So there is that envy in it, and in a way, little admiration also, like how she can do, this kind of thing. So I wanted to have all that there, and for using certain cinema things, like whether it's a zoom shot or a track shot, these trials really, I get very enthusiastic to try and see if you are getting there without speaking.
And these shots linger a bit longer than you're used to in films generally, right? You'd think, she watches her go. You think that's the utility of that scene. It's established she's not noticing her, but that's not just that. You're saying, let's stay there for a couple of beats more.
Yeah, I think that in in today's world, we are so much getting short-term information very quickly. It's okay sometimes to also linger.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. And when we are speaking about these two women, especially,
Mm.
right? We know that Anu doesn't mind chasing her desires. I mean, she doesn't mind taking risks.
Mm-mm.
But Kani's character, she's very much on the safer side of things.
Mm.
Probably even docile. I don't know
Mm.
if that would be the right word to use for her.
Not in her work though, because in her work she's very strong.
Yeah.
She's very giving.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
What would it take for her to become an Anu, you think? Like,
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel somewhere that maybe when she was younger, she might have had certain different views, but over time the morality has seeped in. Unfortunately, in our system, what has happened is that even for me, I feel as a woman, I internalize a lot of misogyny or patriarchy without even thinking about it. Like, that is the way the world is designed, and it's really unfortunate. So over time you become more and more conditioned into it, and I see that in myself also as I grow older towards women who are younger than me. And it was something that I was really bothered by, that why am I behaving in this way sometimes, or why am I having this kind of judgment
yeah,
towards
where you're
people
critiquing yourself unfairly.
And I think
Yeah.
most women do it. It's because it's just the way that the system works. It's
That
not
reminds me,
because of the women.
one of the sadder scenes in the film, and you don't really sell the sadness, obviously, is when Anu apologizes
Yeah.
for being with her boyfriend to Kani's character, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I am so sorry. And it feels like, but what are you sorry about?
That I lied to you. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's also there. There is some friendship. There is some thing of like a trust between them.
And then goes to, well, does it anyway.
Yeah. And then she, I'll tell you, that's the ending. So
Yeah.
I won't say.
Even the music is very unintrusive. There's a lonely guitar every now and then, probably a bit of piano.
Piano, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And that's such a, again, departure from the general score that tends to drum in what emotion they want to sell through the scene to you, right?
Yeah.
What are the rewards, you think, when we go a bit easier on such use of music, for example?
I have nothing against music like that. I think that films use it very effectively. But then when it becomes a crutch, I sometimes feel like that is too pushing certain emotions, and it doesn't allow for the mind to formulate one's own thoughts. But I feel that some directors also do that really well. So when there is a lot of good thought put into it, and is kind of why this music is there, or what kind of feeling it is bringing, then I'm quite okay with music. And this time I think I've used the most amount of music in my film. And when I heard this piece that I've used, it's by a nun. It's by an Ethiopian nun.
I see.
And she was a jazz pianist nun.
Oh, wow.
Really
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Her name is Emahoy Sege Mariam Gebru. She was an Orthodox nun, so very like strong Christianity. But she produced this amazing music. Like, her body of work is just incredible, and it's there all on YouTube to listen to.
Okay.
So I randomly stumbled upon this music, and when I heard it, it gave me this kind of feeling of delight. You know, like sometimes when you're on the new romance and you're thinking about meeting somebody, and there's a kind of like nice excitement to it. I was associating this music with that, but she's a nun.
I know, right? What the irony of it.
Yeah, maybe these things are connected, the idea of grace or godliness and love, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I find some connection there.
Do you do that a lot? Do you go hunting for music online? Or?
Well, yeah, actually, I love to collect like different music from anywhere. Like for me, Japanese experimental jazz is really exciting. Like from like 1970s, you don't know what you'll find there, and it's like really kind of strikes you in a way. Because it's so unique and so
How much of
particular.
that is personal enjoyment, or is that very utilitarian?
Yeah, it used to be personal enjoyment. Now everything you want to connect to filmmaking. So even life, like anything, walking around, I'm connecting things to filmmaking. I'm like, oh, this could be so nice in a film.
Do you miss then on some level when you weren't making films?
No.
No.
I think
Okay.
that it makes life more interesting than cinema.
Right. Okay.
Then we can see everything as a film, you know. You're traveling in a train, you're seeing somebody with next to
But
a window.
what
you
about
get
processing
excited.
it authentically without necessarily the
That is
crunch?
authentic only for me.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's not like I'm actually going to put it in a movie.
True.
But everything feels like, oh, it's so nice. Like it could be in a film. You know, that feeling is there.
Yeah.
I love cinema.
Do you feel that? Me too. Do you feel that when you're even when you're supposed to be enjoying a specific moment, say for example with another person, do you still on some level is the director in you telling you, this is a good moment?
I don't sometimes see it as a director. I see it sometimes as a spectator.
Right.
And as an audience, because I'm also cinephile. I love watching films. So for me, sometimes I'm in a place and I say, oh, this could be in this film, not my film, some film. It could be a film.
A sense of out-of-body experience in a way, right? The detached perspective.
Yeah, and something like some feeling of beauty in it also. I think I'm very attracted to beauty in things, and
Lovely.
I try to look for it. Maybe because of cinema. I don't know.
I think a couple of times you mentioned this idea of thinking about things while you're watching films. We often associate that experience with books, right?
Yeah.
We like them because it allows you to make up your own mind about things and pause and stop and move on. It seems to me that with films, mostly you don't get the space to think about things. When did that start for you?
I think that for me, quite often the cinema that I love is closer to poetry than to prose, and especially films that where I can't actually narrate the plot back to you, because that won't be as significant as the film. The plot is there, but there is something about the cinema that made it go beyond that plot. That kind of films really excite me to watch.
Which is very interesting, because mostly films seem to be getting made by somebody narrating a story to someone else.
I believe in the story for sure, and I believe in this thing, but I feel that if the story is being told and the story is being watched, there should be something more in that, in the watching of it, like the cinematic quality of it.
Okay. So if you had a producer approach you and tell you, hey, I don't know, what do you want me to fund?
No, I'd be no.
Would you be able to sell All We Imagine Is Light with
I
all
got money for it.
That is true. That is true. Yeah,
I did put in my own.
Yeah. No, but was there a lot of convincing needed there? Or was it someone who believed in your vision on account of exposure to your work already?
No, I had a very clear script. And actually, that is the thing. The medium of writing a script and making a film are two different things. It is cinema at the end of the day, and a script is a script. It's on the paper. You can take different liberties there, and you can take different liberties here. Fundamentally, the feelings and everything, the story, the trajectory, the narrative, the chronology will be the same. But certain things you can't write on paper only. Like, how will I write it? It's not. That is why it's cinema.
Is it important then that someone who's interested in funding, for example, an All We Imagine Is Light, is it important for them to have enough exposure to cinema so they understand what you're trying to do here, as opposed to just growing up with
I don't know. I've also been thinking about this a lot more and more, and I feel that I would eventually like to reach a stage of filmmaking where that is not the case. Perhaps at the moment I am still in that place of somebody who is more cinematic, more learned, more cinema to accept. But I do feel that in India we also have a great history of literature and poetry, which also can lead to accepting a certain kind of cinema when somebody is exposed to that. So, and painting also, if somebody has some inclination towards it, I feel that that interest can lead to looking at cinema differently as well. So all these things can lead to cinema. But I also feel that more and more I want to move towards a cinema that is that doesn't only rely on cinema.
How do you mean? Can I ask you to expand on it a bit?
Like to have it be that the layers of the story are there for whoever wants to see, but also not for those who don't.
Yeah.
To have it both ways.
Yeah. Is it possible to do that?
I don't know. I have to get there.
But you're definitely inclined towards figuring that out.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'd want more people to watch my films, and that is my biggest desire in life.
And if that demands a louder use of music, then you're fine with it.
I mean, I'll have to find some way, and I just have to find that for myself as a filmmaker, to find my path to that. It may not be something specific like music, but it could be something else, maybe having songs and I'm always interested in composing songs for a film. Like that is something that I've always wanted to do, but never took up the challenge because it's actually very difficult
Right.
to compose a good song and to make it work in the script and to have it in the film. So all these desires I have. Maybe next project.
Obviously, we can't discuss this film without discussing Mumbai a bit.
Mm.
And typically, most stories about Mumbai, most stories about these metropolitan cities in general tend to romanticize them, tend to speak of them as a really beautiful, beautiful place. But I found it very interesting that you're not shrinking away from launching the occasional critique on the city life. Chuana.
Yeah, I think Mumbai is a city of contradictions. I mean, any big city like Mumbai has that quality to it, that it is on one side, it can create a feeling of feeling liberated, especially if you come from a smaller town where you know everybody. There you can be more anonymous, especially for women.
Right.
It's also like Mumbai compared to many other places in India. It's a little bit more safe to work late at night, to have a little more freedom, so called. Not entirely, not as much as it should be, but still there's a step there. So there is a kind of professionalism to women in workplace and things like this, which is a bit more in Mumbai, I feel. So those are all the positive things. A lot of my friends who like from Kerala who will go to Mumbai will say, but I feel so much more free in Mumbai as a woman. So there is all that, and that is the positive.
You don't feel as watched or judged.
Yeah, right? Like everybody's getting on with it, So there's no choice to sit around and like feel anything.
Look
You're
at that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, just let me get home. But it's also a really like difficult city. I mean, it's so expensive to get to have a place to stay, to live a comfortable life. Every day you are working 6 days a week at least, if not more. And there's absolutely no time because otherwise you can't afford to live there.
Yeah, that's true.
And there is also constant, like the city, because it's an island city, there's not enough space. So people are constantly being, removed from one area and moved to the other. That's the theme in the film also. And it's happening all the time in Mumbai. That's the characteristic of the place.
You spoke about relocation, right? And it seems to me that these women are attacked from different spaces, different sides, different dynamics are hurting them. I mean, one moment you have this capitalistic enterprise eating them, another moment you have the fear of judgment, an absent husband elsewhere. It feels like you could just keep counting the number of things oppressing them on some level.
Yeah, which is why the rice cooker. For me, that is a combination of the patriarchal expectations as well as capitalism, and all mixed into one kitchen appliance. Rice cooker, come on, how unromantic.
Yeah. And I thought that scene particularly was affecting, where she hugs the rice cooker, and it almost feels like an expression of physical intimacy towards it, right?
I was thinking a lot about like a physical theater performance, and Kani comes from a background of theater also, a very physical theater. So I felt that it was I could try to do this in the film.
From time to time, even when Kani's character or Anu gets vulnerable, it seems to me mostly it happens in the evenings, in the nights, and it got me thinking about how evenings and nights have the strange quality of removing whatever illusions you created around yourself.
That's a nice way to think about it. I think also because when we go to work, we are there. I mean, of course, nurses have different shifts, but let's assume that we go as a daytime work. Then at that time, you have no time to like think about, all these inner things. It's the evenings which are your own, and the nights which are your own.
And it seems to me that the sun just sheds way too much light on everything and leaves no room for interpretation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true. That's a nice way to think about it.
I wanted to speak to you about this theme of sisterhood in the film. And very poetically, very beautifully, they already referred to themselves as sisters only.
Yeah.
In their line. Was that accidental? Were you extremely aware of it while you were doing it?
Actually, I like to play with words a lot. So the word sister, because even the guy who likes her calls her sister.
I know, right? Yeah.
And only in one point he will remove the sister and he says her name.
Yeah.
So those kind of little things, if you pay attention in the film,
true,
they're all there.
And there's the constant churn of the sea. especially towards the second half of the film. It seems a constant sound in your ears, and I thought it was really cathartic. It's among the most beautiful sounds in the world for me. Do you want to talk to me about the influence of the sea, the sound of the waves, the constant churn of it in your story?
Yeah, I actually wanted to play with time in this film, and I think sound is a keeper of time, and the waves also lend to that feeling of time, the passage of time, something moving like this, like this. I don't know. For me, it's very
Yeah.
to do with the passage of time.
Yeah.
And for the first half of the film, I wanted the sounds to be uh, like the train, the construction, the rain. All these three sounds are very typical of Mumbai, especially in the monsoon season. You will always hear the rain and the train and construction, unfortunately, through the day. Everywhere you go, something is being constructed. That is the nature of the city. But when they are in Ratnagiri, the sound of the waves, I wanted it to become synced with kind of like a feeling of the heartbeat of the place, because it's got this
Yeah.
wave and ebb kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And for me, that became like an internal rhythm of the people here, of the characters. I know it's a very kind of theoretical thing, but I feel that the sound of waves does something to me, and I
know
like
what you
to
mean.
play with it in a way that.
Do you suppose Ratnagiri, for example, the way you captured it? Do you think there's a certain healing quality associated with how you want to capture that place? The experiences these women go through there.
I think it has a like what I was thinking about when I thought about Ratnagiri was two things. One, that I wanted a feeling of time, because in the first half of the film, it's many scenes are there, it's like montages are there. Time is many days pass, but in the second half is just one long day. And I was thinking, like, how will we perceive time? Because in cities we don't have a time for ourselves. It's a very capitalistic feeling of time. Even on the holiday, you're washing your clothes or like doing something chore related.
True.
So, and when we are living away from home in a city and you take a holiday, it is to go back home to the family. That is also not really a holiday. It's a holiday, but for women, it can be more complicated than that. So I wanted to give these characters a forced holiday. And because holiday time where actually you're doing nothing, that's very rare in India. Like, the to do nothing, women in leisure, it is not common.
And even there, poor Prabha does not get so much leisure.
Yeah, she wants to work only. She doesn't know what to do. She's like saving some guy.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he apologizes as well. He, or was it another character, apologizes for ruining her vacation?
That lady says, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So that is, like, taking a vacation for the joy of just having time for yourself. It's not part of a lot of women's lives.
Yeah.
In fact, there's an Instagram page I follow called Women in Leisure, which
Nice.
I love so much, which is about like, just women relaxing and having a good time.
Look at the basic things we're having to normalize
I
here.
know, right? Like, women in leisure is like, oh, I cannot take some time off because it looks so bad.
Because you feel
Feel
guilty on some
guilty,
level.
yeah. You feel guilty. So I wanted to have some leisure time. That's why Parvati as a character also likes to grab that leisure time whenever she gets the chance, whether she goes to the water or she likes to dance or
True.
like this.
True.
So
And that scene in specific, while Anu and Parvati are dancing, and Prabha sort of gazing at them like, if only
sometimes I want to shake her up and be like, why are you like this?
Yeah. The story itself is a bit like the sea, isn't it? I mean, there's no definitive beginning, no definitive end. You leave things a bit open there as well, I suppose.
For me, it's quite definitive. It's a change in a person's character.
Yeah.
And that was what I was trying to say, that sometimes even a small change like that is actually very big. That kind of acceptance. And yeah.
Do you want to maybe here speak about the refusal to dramatize certain situations more than needed? Because there are lots of things happening here. It's ripe for a filmmaker to get in and say, you know what, I'm gonna really sit with this one.
For me, life is too dramatic. Yeah. It's like every time so many things are happening, you read the newspaper, I'm getting a heart attack. So I wanted to, in the film, keep it more quiet.
What if you had to focus on one specific emotion and say, I want to leave people with this one?
Hope. Definitely.
Yeah.
Like, I think people accepting each other.
Specifically to women? Or?
No, I mean, just that we accept certain ideas. I think in the world that we live in now, we are very, we like to divide things a lot and say that this I don't understand. It's not me. It's not. And in this film, somebody is changing her mind to accept an idea that she would normally not have accepted at all. Like, it was completely out of her zone, and she did accept her friend. So for me, that is something that I've personally been working on a lot on myself,
Yeah.
to accept people whose ideas are not always accepting, but to kind of look past my immediate.
Have you figured out a secret for making big breakthroughs in your quest
No,
towards it?
just a bit more like um, openness, I think. And yeah, we come from a lot of preconceived notions about things, and the idea that we know everything. Actually, we know nothing.
Yeah.
One
yeah.
should start from there.
Yeah.
My previous movie is called A Night of Knowing Nothing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like sometimes when you look at Prabha, you just wish she would go easier on herself.
Absolutely.
You know, why don't you start? Why are you hurting yourself so much? Why don't you start with forgiving yourself?
You're
letting-
so right. That's
Yeah.
true.
And the idea that there may or may not be a husband elsewhere, that itself seems like a very poignant parallel to a lot of husbands who may be right next to you, but not necessarily there.
Wow, that's really an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, you're right. I
Yeah.
didn't actually think about it like that. But that is the case mostly in
Yeah.
our life,
Where
many, many times.
You feel stuck in a box, right?
Mm.
Within a label that you
Mm.
feel like you should belong to.
Unfortunately, in our culture, it's very hard to separate. Like,
Mm.
not because it's legally hard, but just the baggage of it is so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
that it's not. You'd rather stick to this weird marriage that you're in than sometimes.
Yeah, at least this gives me the, I don't know, weird comfort of belonging to
Yeah.
a known structure, I suppose,
Yeah.
right?
There is some legitimacy to this institution of marriage in our culture, which is why I wanted the two relationships to be different, because Prabha, who's in the relationship with somebody who, I mean, she knows him, but it's like really kind of, he's
Yeah.
disappeared
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But that relationship is on paper looked at more legitimate, like a more legitimate relationship than, say, Anu's relationship, which is with a guy that her parents would never accept, or her friends or anybody. And that is considered to be illegitimate, although she's actually falling in love.
True.
So I was trying to explore this idea of legitimacy
Mm.
in relationships here.
And the fact that he belongs to a different religion as well, that brings another dynamic to the fore too.
But in our culture, it's everything. All identity is always coming in the way of family making.
And obviously, I mean, just to clarify things, we are obviously talking about togetherness that does not work, right? I mean, specifically in Prabha's case, the marriage clearly is non-existent.
Yeah.
And yet,
Yeah.
because it's so sanctified.
Exactly. Like I did some research with this, and I was meeting lawyers who work with women whose husbands who are estranged from them.
I see.
And she would say that there is apparently a clause where you can get an annulment after a certain amount of years.
Uh-huh.
But women would come for the information, to gain the information, but never come back to actually do it. They were like, no, it's okay. Let it be like this only. That was more okay for them. So I was, a very small percentage would come back.
What do you think definitively prevents them from saying, yeah, I'm done. It's time to move on?
I think for a single woman, it's always hard in India, no? Like, to be living alone or to be
But
living...
Prabha is practically single, right?
Yeah, but she still has a sense of being in a marriage.
Yeah. If she
and-
tells someone she's married, then hopefully they'll leave her alone.
Yeah, like that. Unfortunately, that is the way our society is designed. But only Parvati is a character who's like, I don't want anything. She's a true independent spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good time to come back to the whole Oscars conversation. What was going in your...
Going with Chayaji.
There is that, yeah. And lots of strange comparisons as well, right?
Yeah.
Very focused on women, two women specifically.
Yeah.
One with a bit more courage than the other.
Yeah, very true.
What did you make of it when you learned that, well, there was a likelihood that yours could be a submission for it?
See, for me with this film, I've been making this film for a long time. 4-5 years I've been making this film. And to make the film also, there were times where we thought that we'd never be able to make it only. Because we raised money, very little from different sources, different countries, different funds. So it was like really collecting and making the film. So the fact that it got selected to Cannes, the fact that it won a prize, all this, we feel a bit like, whoa, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of bonus for us.
Right.
The greatest joy has been that we actually got to make it. And then now everything I get more than that, I just feel like, that's so nice. It's something more. So I'm for me, all of it has been bonus. And the Oscars also, I was like, oh, okay, this. It felt like something that would be a new thing for me. I didn't know anything about the Oscars or how it works or
I see.
whatever. But I'm also like really glad that a film like Lapata Lady is going, because it's a great film, and I really like Kiran Rao's previous movie also. It's about Mumbai.
That's
Dholiga.
true.
It's such
Yeah.
a lovely film, and so I don't know. For me, yeah, that's nice. It's great.
Yeah. Are you very invested in which film gets submitted to the Oscars on a year-to-year basis? Is that
I have to say no.
okay? Okay.
I mean, when you're making a film, you're just doing that. I mean, it's like.
No, I don't mean
It's
specifically
like
your
going for
film.
I
Yeah.
know, but when you're making films also, like
Hmm.
your nose is on your feet, you're like, okay, tomorrow my camera will not stop working, tomorrow this will not happen, tomorrow it won't rain, tomorrow the cat will be acting well, all that. That's
Yeah.
what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see this as important recognition for India in some way, or do you think we should rise above it?
I think in India we have our own systems in place. Our films, a lot of such big films, such interesting films are not even sending to festivals
True.
and all. It's because we have our own ecosystem here. So I think that all of it that is also good, this is also good, and it's not there is also, we have lots going
Yeah.
on.
No, the reason I ask you that is each time when this conversation invariably comes up, then there's a question of, okay, should we send something that is our own, or should we send something that belongs to a grammar that they might appreciate better? So it feels like, okay, you know what? This feels more like our sort of
But
loud.
what is our?
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
many hours.
Yeah, that's true.
We have very different cinema here in Tamil Nadu. We have very different cinema in different places. Look at Malayalam cinema, what they're doing. There's such a big range.
No, what they
That's-
see as our. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like you see a film like Reema Das's film, I feel like even she's long overdue for an Oscar submission. She does amazing work. I mean, her films are so good. And so I think like there are different grammars in our films also. Let's be more nuanced about our own cinema. We have so many different cinemas here, and that's great.
Yeah.
And that's the joy of it.
Yeah.
That there is not one thing. In fact, most of the other cultures, it's so homogenous over there.
True.
What is an American film, you can clearly see that. But here, it's so different
Well,
everywhere.
between states, you have different identities for what sort of films they do.
Yeah, and that is what makes us us.
So maybe instead of waiting for someone else to celebrate us, we should learn to start celebrating.
I
the
think we
work that
celebrate
do.
also. And then once a year there is Oscar, once a year there is something else, and you feel okay, excited.
Yeah.
It's all part of it.
Yeah.
And then once a year there's another great film that will come out, which is not in the Oscar, not in the thing, but we just loved it.
Yeah.
So like
Before I wrap up this conversation, I definitely want to discuss some of the glorious shots in this film, I think. While you were talking, it just suddenly occurred to me that we hadn't really discussed it. Specifically, when these two get into the cave, before they do, there's a gorgeous shot from within the cave where you just see this frame of light in which the both exist. Talk to me about the toil of figuring out such compositions.
Yeah, like for me, I work very closely with my cinematographer and my production design team. Like we even for like 1 year we were just talking and looking at images and just discussing how to look. And my cinematographer, I worked for 10 years, so we have a good relationship, like visually, and we would write certain images into the script. So that when we were looking for locations, we'll have that in our mind. And we had a wonderful location. I would like to call him a location artist, because some people, like, they're so passionate about their work, and he is one of those people. His name is Kishore Sawant, and he's like a legendary location scout in Mumbai.
I see.
So he has done a lot of Mumbai films in the past, and his main thing is, I want to find locations that have not been seen before, but also work with the script. So he really goes out of his way, and he also happens to be from Ratnagiri.
Oh wow, okay.
So because actually there's a long connection between the Konkan and Mumbai. There has been a long history of people going from the Konkan region to work in the cotton mills in Mumbai, and that movement has been throughout the 20th century. And a lot of the feeling of Mumbai is defined by the people of Ratnagiri, because they are the ones who have come and lived and worked there.
Right.
So there is an old connection. So I wanted to actually draw that line between Ratnagiri and Mumbai.
So when you speak of already identifying certain looks and frames, it doesn't feel like you're first checking out the locations, and the locations don't necessarily determine what you do.
No, they do.
They do? Yeah.
So you say, I will find the most ideal location. Mm-mm. It doesn't happen like that at
Yeah.
all. You can go to search for the ideal, but finally you have to, as a filmmaker, your whole thing is to also adapt.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
And I love that specific frame because it seems to almost tie in with the point of the film, the title
That's so
of the
nice,
film.
yeah. It's
right?
interesting that you saw that because I thought a lot about this shot.
Yeah.
And we were looking very much for a cave with those Buddhist motifs inside. But unfortunately, the archaeological department to get the permissions to shoot in that kind of with those artifacts and those things are not easy. So we had to do some cheating. Uh, but we found a nice cave which had this element of something like a light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
and that is the feeling I wanted to.
And
kind
the
of
light
create.
itself is that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
organically, just being willing to chase this organic affection that you may get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely. It's such a pleasure speaking with you.
You as well. Thank
I
you.
wish you the best with this film and any other film that you go on to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.